All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to parallel session 1 of the 7th International Language and Language Teaching Conference in this Zoom meeting. My name is Sarah as the moderator. I'm a 5th semester student of English Language Education Study Program in Untitled University, and I will be in charge of this parallel session. So before we start this parallel session, let me read the rules. First, each presentation will last for 15 minutes. Two presentations will be delivered in a row. 3, we will have Q&A session after all the presentation have finished. And then 4 other rules can be found in the program book. So you can find detailed information in the program book. Okay, so we start the meeting for today. There are 2 presentations in this room by Mr. Christianus I. Wayan Eka Budiarta and Ms. Dita Surwanti. So let's start with the first presentation entitled Process Approach and Collaborative Learning and Analysis on Students' Academic Writing. It will be delivered by Mr. Christianus I. Wayan Eka Budiarta from Sampurna University. So for Mr. Christianus, you will have 15 minutes for the presentations, and the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sarah. Okay, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. This is like a welcoming home again for me after how many, more than 15 years ago, I was also graduated from Sanata Dharma University, yeah, my undergraduate program. It's really nice to meet you all, but again, I'm very happy, for example, I got invitations from my colleagues actually around Pak Marcus and so on, and Bu Yosefa, who else then, Mita, all are my close groups at that time. And then again, I would like to share something which is probably something very common for many of us, which is about academic writing. And because at the moment, at Sampurna University, I'm not only in charge of teaching linguistics, yeah, but I'm also in charge of helping students with their academic writing, especially the compositions. And this, what you call it, subjects is related to the coordinations or cooperations institutions that we have with the Broward College in the United States. Okay, now allow me to share my screen. Okay, the title of my presentations is Process Approach and Collaborative Learning and an Analysis on Students' Academic Writing. I think when I talked about academic writing, I'm sure that how many of you are writing teachers or who works a lot with the writing? I'm sure a lot, yeah? And you will find lots of situations or informations related to writing, which is also interesting here. Anyway, advanced writing skill, as we learn here, that actually among other requirements to have a better academic performance will be very important in higher educations, because it has a characteristics actually for that. Yeah, I mean that, for example, related to the objective, related to the tentative, accuracy, also well cited, and also formal types of writing. Yeah, this is according to Mutimani. So again, why academic writing, even though it's a very, what you call that, very common, but again, we have to pay attention on that. Yeah. And again, we would like to see that from several types or several angles. And this time I would like to see that from the collaborative learning. Okay. The next one is actually when we talked about writing skills, why writing skills becomes important for students. Again, then writing skills will help the students with their grammar also, and also enrich the students' vocabulary, knowledge, yeah, and support other skills in language, such as, for example, reading, listening, and speaking. All those 4 skills are interconnected. And by having what you call it, by paying attention on the one of the productive skill, which is writing, of course, the other 3 skills actually will what you call that, like a support interconnected to each other in order to improve these skills together. Okay, and then writing in higher educations have lots of issues as we learn, yeah, especially in EFL context, as we see here, that many students they find it difficulties in terms of working with that. And again, Mutimani mentions that writing is considered as a major barrier. I'm sure that many of you also agree. I mean, at the moment, even though I've accomplished my doctoral degree, of course, then writing still parts of our process of learning in this case. So major barrier for university students, because again, writing is not something simple cognitive activity, but more to a complex mental productions. What are they? For example, like grammar in this case, yeah, sometimes, and many of you also maybe agree that could be like overwhelming for students. And also there are countless of rules that students need to pay attention, and many of them make mistakes in paragraphing, punctuations, word classes, yeah, or sentence constructions. Also, there's another argument that stating sentences in academic writing are also often shortened and appear complicated because of students are still in the process of understanding grammatical features. For example, subject and verb agreement, tenses, spelling, and how can they link the one sentence to make a coherent paragraph and so on. Yeah. So lack of knowledge in academic grammar, I'm sure that sometimes lead to frustrations. And in terms of this process, the students probably need help in this case then, yeah. Besides the grammar one or writing conventions, the next barrier for the students often related to the referencing. APA, MLA, which one is that, yeah? So to write in-text citations, putting down the cited works, many students find it this activity is also challenging. Paraphrasing, summarizing, synthesizing, parts of that process, which is quite challenging for many of them. Now, writing in higher education also, what you call that, is not only rely on something in class. Now, as a teachers, as I said before, then we are expected to be able to help the students, to provide assistance for students, both inside the class and outside of the class by, for example, selecting what is the appropriate course, yeah, for that, evaluating the program, and the most and the direct help that the students really need is actually guiding them with their writing process. Yeah. On the other way, students also need the medium of communications in order to use the writing. Now, this is what we call like a process, yeah, in order to negotiate their ideas, come up with their argument. In the process approach writing, yeah, it is suggested also that writing should involve some stages. Yeah, we call that pre-writing. Yeah, I'm sure that you learned that already. Also drafting, revising, editing, and finally the publishing. And the things is actually, this is also another challenge that many language instructors or teachers probably not really aware with this great deal of writing process. Yeah, in our country, we come up lots of with the, what do you call that, a final. We want them to, as far as you produce that, and that's all. Yeah, so we don't really try to accompany them with the process of that. Yeah, so that's why we would like to pay attention on these kinds of process, and then we would like to see what the students can get here by providing, by paying attention to the stages. For example, like this one, the first 3 stages, which is related to the pre-writing, yeah, drafting, revising, and then later on there are another 2 stages. But here in pre-writing, what people do is actually related to come up with the idea itself, brainstorming, and also later on come up with the outline. Drafting, it's not enough, for example, 1 times of drafting as you learn. And revising also is not only revising the sentence, but also editing the the whole idea of that process. Okay, and the other one is editing and publishing. Yeah. So in terms of editing, it's not only part of the proofreading, but also make sure that they come up with something related to the mechanical errors, and then also other simple or common mistakes. And finally, when they come up with the final project or the final paper, final copy, then we have to make sure that all the format should be in a good written. So basically these 5 stages, I think we would like to review that also later. But what is more probably challenging is actually this one. There are some major difficulties that we can see here. Then many students still use our mother tongue structure, and we cannot avoid that. Yeah, the influence of first language in this case is very strong in terms of later on come up with the common issues related to spelling, prepositions, verbs, tenses, articles. Also related to the next one is unnatural product of writing, which is related to the voice and style. Yeah, and then also in terms of larger class for writing, which makes that students assessing students writing, for example, like a difficult. Yeah, if you see how many classes, how many students that you have in a class, could be like more than 25, 30, could be like that. So then it's also influence the directions, the process of them. Once again, what I said before is actually the context is mostly like related to the product approach. Yeah, so which is going to be what happens, what is the result rather than through the process. And students may learn actually from the process that actually that we intend, some vocabulary, sentence structure, conjunctions, yeah, to make their writing become more coherent, and the applications also through what the process of writing from the draft until the final process. So this is, we said that applications of what they have learned is going to be through the compositions, and this will actually make them also what you call that, be able to use the linguistic knowledge. The next one is collaborative learning. Now, this is probably, I don't know, I'm sure that some of you also are familiar with this. Besides the stages that we have in producing a writing, especially academic writing, we need to also come up with what's so-called collaborative learning. And writing is a process itself. And we see here that collaborative learning is the situations when 2 or more people learn and work together. And I'm sure that there's a kinds of the role of peer tutoring here will be important. Again, peer tutoring in this case is actually more to provide them what you call it, like at the same level, at the same situations, enable the interactions between the learner and more experienced peer to happen. If you look at the concept from Puntan, Baker, and Husberg, there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4 concepts of scaffolding, or in terms of peer learning in this case. That's related to intersubjectivity, ongoing diagnosis, and also dialogic and interactive nature, and also fading. Yeah, so parts of that. So collaborative learning, again, that become an important concept and becomes an education field in the FL learners. And then here, for example, in the intersubjectivity, the students probably they learn about the, what you call that, they learn about tutoring sessions that attaining goal to help students, and then ongoing kinds of like a morning meaning focused input. If we remember the theory from Paul Nations, anything that we learn come up with something meaningful. Meaningfulness in this case is very strong, and then at the end we would like to check what kinds of process, whether they are meaningful or not. Also dialogic in this case, yeah, allow the what you call that language focused learning, and also meaning focused output. So the students or with their peers, they can come up with the negotiations in terms of they can study more, of course, for that. And finally, fading, it's part of the what you call that, like fluency development, more to personal process when they try to reflect back on their own and work with their own pace to make sure what they already learned with their peers, actually meaningful for themselves. Now, meaningful collaborative learning should be a symmetrical structure, actions, knowledge, status, and goals. And that's why we call that powerful. There's a powerful pedagogy which is need to be considered here, because that's what we can have that from tutoring process. Okay, and fading, once again, it's a regular process of learning, a point that learner can study independently by themselves. My research questions is actually to what is the process approach in academic writing, and how does collaborative learning adapt the process approach in assisting Indonesian EFL students. Methodology, this is a descriptive qualitative research. As you learn that probably we use a questionnaire and semi-structured interview to find out the informations, and the settings are learning resource centers in the writing center at Sampurna University, and also purposeful sampling stages. We do not select many students because we want to see the maximal variety strategy. So I mean that we see the students with their biggest variety. So this is the data collections, and then this is the results. From the study, we can see only 2 out of 8 subjects will go through the pre-writing stages. And then only 1 out of 8 subjects went to the pre-writing stages for the, oh, sorry, this one is the next one, what you call it, the not pre-writing, that one is the, when they are come up with the drafting, not pre-writing. So only 1 come up with the drafting, and then only 2 come up with the pre-writing. And then actually this process enable, these 2 process is very important for them to think and to write, as for example Nunan mentions. Yeah? And the results for the revising stage, only 1 tutor asked her students to reread her own essay as a whole. So both for students and tutor, only something simple we can see here then. And even though process approach requires collaborative learning, but eventually students are expected to be independent learners. Okay, then here we can see then, we are able to, I mean that 8 subjects, yeah, for example, what happens with this, the editing stages, only 5 out of 8. Now, I mean, editing stage become more focused. I mean that more students can work and then show their editing here, especially related to grammar, translated mistakes, and speaking usage. And again, intersubjectivity in this case and ongoing diagnosis allow the students to work together to discuss on that. And here is the general obstacles that people can see in terms of from the students and then the tutor sides, yeah, in terms of the structure, grammar, making transitions, and punctuation, spelling, and so on. And in terms of dialogic and interactive nature, what is interesting here, that this second part of dialogic interactive, this is related to the meaning focused output. Yeah. So again, then this actually allow the students to work, and then again 5 out of 8 students actually work and they come up with the recommendations writing, and they come up with the dialogic and interactive nature in the process of this. Then. But fading, only 2 students work alone independently out of what they have been suggested by their tutors. And what is interesting, if we learn also about academic writing, we also need to know the what you call that, the amount of academic words that they supposed to have, which is about 8% until 10%. But in general, if we can see, many of them are still under performance, under required performance. This is the conclusions. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's very short. The process writing itself is, once again, is an approach for the process of teaching and learning writing skills with, by emphasizing through the steps of writing instead of only a final product. So actually, we need to pay attention on that. And how does collaborative learning adapt into the process of approach? In this case, again, revising stage was the most popular stage because they would like to learn with that. However, other stages are also important to provide meaningful learning experience for students. Again, meaningful learning experience, even though they have not gotten much attention yet. And finally, to what extent does the role of writing center support the implementations of process approach? Majority of the activities in collaborative learning have been implemented in the writing center. But students' independent learning is part of what they need to improve here is not given lots of attention yet. So I think that's all for my presentations. Thank you very much. Sorry, I hope that the time is good. Okay then. Okay, thank you, Miss Sarah.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Christian. That was very engaging presentation about academic writing. Okay, let's continue to the second presentation entitled Students Challenges in Academic Writing Online Class by Miss Dita Surwanti from Sarjana Wiyata Tamasiswa University. So for Miss Dita, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Sarah, for giving me the chance to present my article here on LLTC conference in the year of 2020. And then actually, maybe before I started to start to present my slides, maybe I need to a little bit say sorry first. Maybe later on, if I have some problems with the lighting or with the slides, so I will need sometimes to yeah, like this. So maybe I need to not using the background, or is it okay if I don't use the background of the conference?
Just try to use the background,
Okay.
Miss.
Yeah. Yeah, okay,
It's
no
okay.
problem. Yeah, so
Okay.
I will start my presentation. Let me share my slide. Okay, so I think it's still morning. So good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is still in passion, and also you are motivated to watch my presentation today. And then actually my presentation is quite similar to Pak Wayan's presentation, so both of us present about academic writing. But then here in my presentation I would like to share about the case study that happened in my classes last semester. So that was on the even semester of the academic year 2019 and 2020. And then as far as we know that last semester we experienced pandemic, and then we have to switch our learning process from the classical one into an online learning class. And then here I would like to share about what happened, and then the challenges that my students experience during the online class in writing class. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the introduction first. So here we can see that actually I quoted some theories I quoted some theories, and one of them is from Carlin. And then here, Carlin says that learning academic writing is quite complex, but this type of writing has a crucial role in the higher education and in academic life. So we all know that academic writing is quite difficult to learn, especially for early or beginner students in the university. And then there are so many things that we have to learn in order to be able to write academically. But no matter how difficult or how complex is academic writing, we consequently realize that academic writing will bring a lot of benefits into our life, especially when we enroll in education or in academic sector. And then another theory that I quote, it is from John and Tardy, so I combined. So it requires the ability to employ a range of knowledge types across tasks and genres critical reflection, and also creativity. So in academic writing, there are so many things that we need to learn and we need to practice. And then based on John and Tardy, they said that we don't only need about lots of knowledge in academic writing, but we also need to practice our critical thinking, our creativity, and our knowledge about different tasks and also genres. And then the third is that based on Ramoroka in 2014, so in academic writing, logic and creativity are two main reasons or main points that we need to consider, because we don't only need the knowledge about the academic writing, we don't only need about the ability to write, but we also have to be able to think logically, and also we have to be able to think in a creative way. And then this is also I quote this one because this is also what I believe and also what I experience as a teacher. It's quite challenging for me to teach my student, especially to teach writing. And then we can see that Lonka and friends say that it is quite also a challenging task for teachers to develop learners' writing skills and teaching the appropriate materials, as well as facilitate them for writing academic research papers. So we can see that there are so many things that the teacher need to consider too. It's not only the students who need to think a lot of things. So it's not only complex for the students, but it's also complex for the teacher when they have to prepare the materials, especially materials for academic writings, to prepare the appropriate materials and also to facilitate them and also to teach them in a correct way. So that's why I was interested in writing this article, because when you write an essay, especially for a beginner university students, it's your initial experience to truly learn about the academic writing. When you started to learn about writing academic writing or academic paper, so this is your first or initial experience. And then for my students, it's also one of the hardest productive skills to learn for us, and even for me myself. Up until now, I'm still learning about academic writing, and I'm still trying to improve my academic writing too, because it's not an instant way to or to be fluent in academic writing. Okay, so that's the reasons why I was interested to conduct this research. And then this is the research question that I used. So what are the challenges or the problems that the English Education Department students experience in the academic writing online class? So in this research, actually, it's only the preliminary research where I want to figure out what are the challenges or the obstacles or the problems that my students experience in my academic writing class. And then later on, in the future, near future, so I'm planning to figure out the solutions that I can apply to solve the students' challenges in academic writing. But here in this research, so I will try to answer these questions about the challenges or the problems that the English Education Department students experience in my academic writing class. So the method, like what I have told you before, so I use a case study, and then the definition of a case study, it's an empirical inquiry of a contemporary phenomenon or case that is set within the real world context. And then especially when the boundaries between the phenomenon and context are not clearly evident. So here I want to show you about what actually happened in my class, what my students experienced, what did they feel when they joined my class, especially in this academic writing class. And then the next one, the purpose and rationale for this research were to define and to figure out the challenges or problems that were experienced by the students in the academic writing online class. And here I will explain about the setting, subject, and instrument. The setting, so like what I've told you, I teach at Sarjana Wiyata Taman Siswa University, and then I teach in English Education Department, and then this research was conducted in writing for professional context class, and it was done for the 4th semester students. Yeah, and then it was done from February to July 2020. And then the data were gathered from 4 classes of writing for professional context course. And then there were 78 students of the 4th semester who took my class. And then actually there are 6 classes, but I only taught 4 classes of 6. And then the data were collected by using several instruments, the written test, and also the writing rubric, and also the observation rubric. And then I have to admit here, before I explain about my analysis, so the first thing that I want to admit is that because the pandemic, it's something that is a kind of like, we didn't predict that. We didn't predict that that kind of situation will happen in our life. So it's spontaneous. We have to switch directly the way we teach from classroom learning into online class. And especially in my context in my university, we were not ready at that moment. So we were not ready to switch our learning method from classical to online, and I have to admit that. So when we have to switch that one, so I was not ready to implement all the digital learning method. And at that moment, what I could use in my class is that I use the Google Classroom. I also use the portal. It's the web from the university, and also I use the WhatsApp. So I tried to use the WhatsApp effectively, and use not only the WhatsApp group, but here in my class, because we changed the class into online, lots of I have to text my students individually to make sure that they are engaged. They were engaged in my lesson. Okay, so let's move on to the course description first. So I will explain about what is this class about. So Writing for Professional Context 2 here provides students with theoretical and practical learning experience in writing essay, and also focuses on writing a research proposal. So here in one semester, so the students in the 4th semester, they have to learn how to develop paragraphs into essay, and after that, they have to be able to write a research proposal. So this one, the challenges that I experience, and not only me, but it's my students. So the students experience this kind of thing. The first challenge is about about developing ideas into paragraph. So at the beginning of this semester, actually, when I taught this material, it's still online. It's still in the classroom learning process. So it's still on the first week, second week, and third week of the semester. So I already delivered the materials in the class, and then from that. From the classical learning, it's quite also difficult to learn this to teach the students to be able to develop their ideas into paragraph. So the students still have some difficulties in developing paragraph to write down the main ideas and also the supporting sentences. They still have some problems in doing that kind of task. And then when it was on the 4th meeting of the semester, and then we have to switch our learning class into online class, and then I lost my touch, because I lost my connection with my students, and then we have to switch the class into online. So to make sure that they really understand about the materials, it's quite difficult. I have to admit that. So even from the classical learning process, my students had some difficulties in untangle their ideas in their mind, in their brain, to write down all the ideas into a good paragraph, and then from one paragraph to another paragraph to relate between the main idea in the first paragraph to the main idea on the second paragraph. They still have that confusion. And after that, we started to learn via online. And then what I did was I only shared the materials on the Google Classroom, and after that we have discussion on the WhatsApp group to explain about the materials every week. And after that they may ask lots of questions, and if they still don't understand about the materials, they can also text me in private to ask about the materials. And then here, these are the two problems that my students experience: developing ideas into paragraph and also developing paragraphs into essay. And then the third problems is that because we have to write a research proposal, and then in classical way, it's already quite difficult to teach the students what they have to do in writing a research proposal, what kind of title that they have to choose, what kind of topic that they have to choose. It's already quite difficult. So at that moment I did not use online meeting, like using Zoom or Google Meet or anything. I did not use that. I was not ready to change my lesson from classical into online. So yeah, I have to admit that this is my weakness. At that moment, I have to switch. I have to only discuss about the materials via WhatsApp group. So the third challenge is about the writing research proposal, to find the idea, to find the title, to teach them about how to find other research that has similar topics, to find related studies, and also to make an outline. And also it's quite a challenging moment. And after that, like what I have mentioned from earlier, that online learning, it's really a challenge, not only for me but my students. So most of my students are from, you can see, like East Indonesia, so like Flores, Sumba, Maluku, and after that Papua, Sumatra, and Borneo. So at their hometown, sometimes they don't have good signals, so they have problems to keep in touch with me. Some students, they don't really engage with the learning. And yeah, sometimes I have to text them in private, where were you on the last meeting? Okay, or if they have not if they had not yet completed or submitted the task, I have to uh, check and text them. So that's the challenges, and they have the signal problem for that. And they do not really understand my explanation. For example, from the materials that I deliver or the material that I give them, they still have some problems in understanding that, because we don't have any discussion like this. We only discuss that via WhatsApp uh, group, and also private. And then the fifth challenge is about the engagement. So during the online learning process, we cannot guarantee that our students really engage in our class. Even like in this semester, in this odd semester, when I have already used Zoom, Google Meet, and everything, you cannot always make sure that your students are engaged in your classroom. We don't know whether behind the camera, whether they are busy with texting their friends, whether they are busy talking with their family, or whether they're busy with something else. We don't know. Even if I ask them to open their camera, they said that, ma'am, if I open the camera, the signal will be bad. So what should I do? So there are so many flexibility that I have to do for my students. If the signals is quite bad, so it means I cannot force them to open the camera, or for example, uh, to stay online. I have no idea whether they are engaged or not. And then the sixth challenge is about the plagiarism, and this is the major challenge because as we can see that the development of technology and internet, we can see search, we can browse anything on the internet. And then especially when I ask them to write down a research proposal, I can say that almost everyone in my class, they did plagiarism in some parts of their research proposal. It can be both from whether they don't really know about the plagiarism, whether they don't really know how to quote or to make a citation, and so on. So what I can conclude here, so the challenges that experienced by my students in the academic writing online class, the first one is the unreadiness for the online learning. And then the second one is the learning engagement. And then the third one, it's about the writing techniques, because the students, this is their initial experience to learn about the academic writing technique, when they have to learn how to quote, to paraphrase, to search, and also writing references. And after that, it's also the challenge in content writing, in formulating research topic and title, formulating research questions, developing arguments and ideas, writing review of related studies, and conceptualizing research design and instrument. And the last one, that's the plagiarism problems. Yeah, I think that's all what I can share to you at this moment. Thank you very much, and I really hope for suggestion, feedback, or comment from all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the engaging presentation from Ms. Dita. Now it's time for a question and answer session. For the first one, I will invite 3 questions. For all the participants, you can click on the raise hand icon and mention your name, affiliation, and to whom you address the question. Okay, is there anyone who want to ask? Or maybe you can write down your answers, your question in the chat box. Don't forget to mention in your name, affiliation, and to whom you want to address the question. Please. Is there anyone who want to ask?
It seems writing is very challenging for everyone.
If there is no one who want to ask, maybe I want to ask Miss Dita, because I personally have experienced the academic writing class in my college. So maybe the question is how the teacher, the lecturer supposed to make the learning, the online learning effective in the future, if it will be still online in few months. Because I think the major problems is about the plagiarism. My lecture also reminds me a lot about that. So maybe what is your suggestion to avoiding to avoid the plagiarism?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mbak Sarah, for asking me the questions. And it's true, plagiarism, it's really such uh, a big problem for everyone, I think, even for myself. Sometimes even I have like redundancy whether I do plagiarism for my previous articles or my previous research, something like that. And then it's like for conducting an effective teaching, especially for the online teaching, because in Taman Siswa, we have the ajaran Taman Siswa, where we have to make sure that our students are we call it unggul. Unggul, it means we have to be able to make them to have the chance to learn. We have to make them to be able to develop their ability then I can, in this kind of situation, actually I cannot force them to be fully engaged or to be fully understand about my class or my lesson. So what I can, yeah, it's also the same like with what Pak Oda presented in previous webinar in my university. So he said that we have, as a lecturer, he has to be flexible enough in this online learning class. He cannot force the students to be fully engaged in the session, but he can learning process. But what I can fully ask my students is that to make sure that we have a good communication. It's not only by using the online meeting, by using Zoom or Google Meet or other things, but in my opinion, it's more about how we communicate with them, how to still connect with them, to make sure that at least they learn something, even though I know that it's impossible for them to be 100% engaged in my learning process. So I think that's all my opinion, Mbak Sarah. So thank you.
Thank you for Ms. Dita. Or Mr. Christianus, maybe you want to suggest something about my question?
Thank you. I would like to also answer Bu Mega's questions because that's interconnected, yeah, with the plagiarism. Again, writing is a process. It's not one night show. I mean that you write down, tomorrow you submit that. No. And I really would like to underline the focus or the main thing, what's so called by meaningful, kebermaknaan. So all the process that we have, including with the teachers, with the lectures, with the peer editing or tutorial that I mentioned before, should be meaningful. And the 4 strands of language learning, according to nations, also tell us about that. Meaningful input competence in order to achieve meaningful output. And in the middle, there's a kinds of process what's so called by deliberate learning. We have to move from something that we exercise, that we understand, that we realize in order to become also good output through what you call it, like a fluency development, like a process. When we try to maximize, we use the process, the target. So what do I do with my class, with my composition class? We use what's so called by Canvas in our university, Canvas LMS. In the past, we use Edmodo, we have Schoology, but at the moment, Canvas seems very interesting and also simple. I uploaded all the materials. I mean that something which is related to the main for example, theory and also some tutorial video related to the key concepts. For example, in terms of citing using MLA, in terms of how to paraphrase, in terms of how to summarize, all the information's uploaded there. But when we meet, so for example, like through synchronous process of learning, we will discuss lots of exercises. And again, in this case, once again, in terms of meaningful, I will try to provide myself availability in this case more than like not only office hour. So the students can send any concerns, questions in the chat group, in the WhatsApp group, if they feel that when they are working with that. So if later on, if I have time, I will reply that for everyone so then they can learn. Once again, the focus is meaningful. So as far as that meaningful, I believe all this process, all the what you call that, plagiarism process can be managed. Of course, that many students started from, first of all, they try to copy and paste, but it's not enough with that. What we do later on is try again and again. That is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you for the answers, Mr. Christianus. So I can conclude. So the important things that are connection to the students and to engage in meaningful activities while in this online learning. Okay, so thank you for our presenters, Mr. Christianus and Miss Dita.
Yeah, Mbak
So
Sarah, may I answer Bhumiga's question, and also I think there is another questions on the chat box from Bu Hirfatul Jannah from SMA Negeri 1 Grati. So if I'm allowed to answer, maybe for is it okay? Do we still have time?
I'm sorry, but we do not have time.
Okay, yeah.
But I recommend for the all participants, maybe you can you can send the question to the presenter's email address.
Okay.
Because we include your email address in the program book. So maybe if you want to ask more questions for all participants, maybe you can check out the email address. Is it okay? Okay. I'm sorry for the limited time. So that is the end of our parallel session 1. So for the next activity, will be lunch break until 1 p.m. And after that, we will continue with the parallel session 2. So thank you for the coming, for all the participants and all the presenters. Enjoy the rest of the conference and see you. Thank you.
Before we end the meeting, can we take a picture together? May a participant turn on the camera? Okay. Because we only have one page, so it will take only one picture. Okay, seems like we start to see some faces here. Okay, we will just start taking the picture now, okay? Smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Miss, for the participation.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Good luck for everyone.
Thank you.